Good afternoon, students. It is nice to catch up again. So, now we are with a different subject, that is the subject of income tax, right? And I'm sure you all would have had previous sessions where you all would have understood what are the basics of taxation. And I'm sure you all would also have studied residential status and, if I'm not wrong, even the salary head, right? Now, what we are going to start with today is the next head of income. Again, as usual, I'll request you all to be more interactive because taxation is something which you can see, feel around you. So it is not necessary that only when I will explain you'll understand tax. You can understand tax by simply observing things around you. And that is why I want your full involvement and I want your continuous inputs on the topic and specifically the questions that I'm going to ask. Now, our subject over here is taxation. And within taxation, right now, what we are dealing with is taxes on income. Now, there is a difference between indirect tax and direct tax. And within direct tax, what we are studying today is taxes on income. I'm sure you all will appreciate this point that income is a net concept and not a gross concept. What I mean by net, if I have to tell you in terms of your accounting, it is your sales, or now I'll use another word because we are discussing with income tax law, receipts minus your expenses. Now, this net is what is referred to as income, even in accounts. Maybe over there you may call it as surplus, you may call it as net profit. Generically, it is your income. And there are two components to derive income, that is the receipts and the expenses. Now, let me make one thing very clear, which will also help us when we'll understand the next chapter in the next week, that is the income from business head, is that the major difference between your accounts and your income taxes, in accounts, you directly get the net profit, which is the total income. If I'm using the word income for that particular entity, let us say this is C Limited. So you are preparing the financials of C Limited and your P&L statement shows you the net profit, which is the total income of C Limited, applying the principles of accounting, where on the credit side you have sales, you may have interest, you may have dividend, you may have rent, you may have some miscellaneous receipts. Majorly, these are the items. You may have profit on sale of investments and some assets like land, building, etc. And on the debit side, you majorly have expenses, you have certain losses, and again, you may have loss on sale of some of your investments or assets. Now, when I compare this with the income tax law, the same C Limited, who is now over here called as an assessee. So see, here till now in accounts, we were referring to C Limited as an entity. So we say that accounts follow entity concept where C Limited is the entity. The same person in income tax is now called as assessee. I'm sure you all would be knowing this. See, if by chance any term you do not know, please ping me. I will explain that term. If you want to raise a particular question, please raise your hand. I'll unmute you so that you can raise. Now, if I compare this with income tax, in the income tax law, the same person, the same entity is now referred as assessee, and the same net profit, which is the total income, is computed, but it is computed headwise, right? Now, originally, when the income tax law, which you are studying today, the 1961 income tax law, when this was formulated, there were 6 heads of income. Today we have 5 heads: salary, house property, business, capital, and other sources. I'm sure you all would be by now knowing these 5 heads. So these are the 5 heads, or these are the 5 sources from which you earn income as per the income tax law. Originally, they were 6. The second head was somewhere here. It was interest on securities and then income from HP. Now, this 6th head has been removed and it has been merged in the head of other sources. So that income is still there, but now it is part of the other sources head. So effectively, today you have 5 heads. Now, I'm sure you all would be updated that very soon India will see a new direct tax code, which will be replacing the present income tax law. And similar to how the earlier indirect tax laws were replaced by GST, in the similar fashion now, the income tax law would be replaced by a new law, which is the direct tax code, which you can say would have similar concepts, similar logics like the present income tax law, but with some important changes that we'll discuss as the time proceeds and as we get more inputs. Now, for the time being, as a student of income tax law, a common question comes to me, sir, this income or the net profit that we are getting in accounts, and here what you are showing as income from 5 heads, are they same? Is there a difference? First question. Second, if there is a difference, why the difference is there? Third question, most important, what are these heads and why do income tax law compute income headwise rather than what accounts does, putting everything in the same P&L, debit and credit, and net is the final income. So let me answer all this. I may not go in the sequence of the questions which I have raised, but we'll go in a different manner of approaching these questions. So the first point is that when income tax law was coined, the lawmakers, the legislature thought that I want to establish different rules, different principles for computing income under different heads, which means the rules which I want to formulate for computing HP income may not apply to the computation of the business income, and whatever I have computed for these 2 heads may not apply for capital income computation. So in the eyes of lawmakers, they wanted to make different computation provisions, in some cases different tax rate provisions, in some cases some different benefit like deductions, rebate, different types of set of provisions. So they wanted that for different sources of income, there should be different types of provisions. And hence, they decided that even though conceptually or principally this net profit of accounts is what is the total income under income tax, they may be same conceptually, principally, but they never will be same in terms of the amount that you are getting. So what net profit you get in accounts will not match with the total income which we will get in income tax, because as I explained, the accounting principles, conventions are different, income tax provisions are different, and further within each head, the provisions are even more different. Fine, students? Now, these expenses which we are going to deduct to find out the net, that is the income, these expenses under the income tax law are commonly referred to as deductions. So whenever you are computing income, income means net. So how net will be arrived? It will be arrived at by deducting. You see, we'll use the word deducting, by deducting the expenses from the receipts. And hence, these expenses which you deduct while computing the income of each head is called as deductions. Now, this is where each head is different. Salary has a different type of deduction. There may be a fixed amount of deduction, which is called as standard deduction. HP head is again having a different set of deductions where there is no fixed amount, but there is a fixed percentage, 30%, which you deduct. But when you go to HP head, when you go to capital head, when you go to other sources head, they will say, okay, we will not provide for any such thing. We will give you deduction for your actual expenses subject to some conditions and limitations. So different heads have different mechanism of computing income. Further, when you go to set off chapter, you will find that different heads will have different rules for set off. Further, when you go to the tax rate, you will find that some of these incomes that you are getting are having special tax rates. Some are having those common slab rates that you may have heard till now, but many may not be having the common tax rate. They may be having the special tax rate. So the lawmakers wanted to make different provisions. Now coming to one of the questions that I had asked, key, we understood that, okay, why you have different heads, because you want different provisions. But then the most important question is, how as a tax computer, or I will say now a professional, or even today you as a student, how will I be able to segregate as to which income will fall under which head? Because as we just discussed, each head has a different provision. Each head has a different format. They have different rules. What will be deducted, what will not be deducted, etc., etc. So the question comes is, how will we be able to distribute or divide as to what income will fall under which head? Now somebody will say, sir, it is so easy. You have the names given. It is so simple. Salary will cover whatever is coming from employment. House property will cover whatever is coming from property, etc., etc. But that is not so easy. It may appear to be very simple by the names, but when you go to the technicalities, I'm sure there are so many cases that you will come across in this whole batch itself, where you will find that a particular receipt may appear to even fall under house property, may appear to fall under business head, and also may appear to fall under the RAS residuary head, that is other sources. Again, some income may appear to fall under capital head, at the same time business head, at the same time other sources head. Some may appear to fall under salary head, at the same time business head, at the same time other sources head. So the question is, how will I be able to segregate? Now here I give you some important concepts and rules. Please pay attention. Now there is something called as a charging section. Now firstly, the charging section of the entire income tax law is section 4. Now what is a charging section? It is that section which tells you that tax would be charged or levied on what. Now section 4 simply says on what tax would be levied. Tax would be levied on total income. Fine. So first, the charging section for the entire income tax law is section 4 of the Income Tax Act, which says tax shall be levied on the total income. Okay. But still my question is different. My question was that how will I be able to segregate as to which income would fall under which head? Again, I will say it is on the basis of the charging section. But now I'm saying charging section of each head of income. So today you have 5 heads of income. Now each head has its own charging section. And let me tell you, let me inform you, that is the first section of that head. So the first section of that head is the charging section. Like salaries. Salaries is covered between 15 to 17. Right? Then, as I said earlier, you had a different head called as interest on securities, which was covered between 18 to 21. Now, since that head is removed, these sections are omitted. They are null today. Then your HP has sections between 22 to 27. Your business head has 28 to 44. Capital head has 45 to 55. And other sources has 56 to 59. Now, the first section of each head is the charging section of that head. Means what? It is that section which will tell you which income will be covered under that head. And these charging sections have provided certain conditions. They have provided certain definitions wherever required. They have used certain terminologies of which you will refer to the definition in section 2. And according to that, only you will be able to identify as to what will be covered in that particular head. So once you identify this, that which receipt will fall under that head. And how will you identify this? What receipt will fall under which head? On the basis of the charging section of each head. You first identify this, and then following the matching principle of accounts, you will identify what are the expenses which are matching those receipts. And then those expenses, you will check the deduction sections. Again, each head has a deduction section also. Like if you remember, under salary, the deduction section was section 16. Under HP, we'll study the deduction section is section 24. Under a business head, you have deduction section from 30 onwards up to 37. So different heads have different section or section. Then you will apply matching principle to find out firstly what are those expenses which were incurred matching with that receipt. And once you identify those expenses, go to the deduction sections and check whether you are satisfying the conditions, restrictions given on those sections. And if you satisfy, those expenses are allowed to be deducted. That is, those expenses become your deductions. And after deducting those expenses from the receipts, you will get the net amount, which will be called as income from that source. Now, what is interesting is, what would be the receipt falling under that particular head, that even though you identify from the charging section, but again, there may be certain provisions that will help you compute the receipt also. So it's not necessary that whatever receipts you will get, the same amount will be considered over here while computing the income of that head. Like in house property also, we are going to study today that whatever rent you are receiving may not become the starting point of computation. The starting point of computation may be different than the actual rent received. So even the receipts that you have to consider under each head, for that also there are provisions to decide how to compute that receipt. And then you compute the deductions applying the provisions of deduction, and then the difference between the receipt computed minus the deductions computed would give you the income under that respective head. I hope this broad description, which is generic to all heads and the entire income tax law, is clear. If anybody has any questions in this, please let me know. In the meantime, I'm checking the chat box. So Bhumika is saying, in which year the interest on securities were merged? Oh, Bapre, Bhumika, don't ask such tricky questions, beta. I'm not so good at remembering dates. So I'll have to refer the law. If you want, I can just show you the act. See, best thing, what I always do and I always recommend the students is, you should always have the habit of referring the bare acts. So you should always go to the bare act. Go to the bare act, you'll find answer to many things. See, I have already the shortcut ready for the Income Tax Act. I always refer to this. Now, if you want to find out, simply do one thing, section 18 I'll type. Now see what it is saying, 18 to 21 omitted by. So see, Bhumika, you get the answer. It was removed by the Finance Act 1988, applicable from the assessment year 89-90. Chalo. So thank you, Bhumika, for asking this question. Because of you, I also checked what was that year. Fine. So Hardik is saying 24AB correct. Account or ACC to nature of income and source from where it arises. Hardik, I did not get this question. According to nature of income and the source from where it arises. Achha, so you are just saying what I said. Okay, yes, clear. Sir, there could be exemptions also. Yes, Pallavi, there are exemptions. See, what is exemption? Exemption is certain receipt which is income, which is earned by you, but the lawmaker do not want to tax you. So they have made a list under the Income Tax Act. It is section 10, which gives you the list of all those incomes, which for the time being, the lawmaker do not want any tax from you. So those incomes on which for the time being, the tax is exempt, that is you don't need to pay the tax, are called as exemption. So you're right. So when we are finding out or when we are computing, obviously before computation, you'll check exemptions, because whatever incomes are exempt, you need not take the pains of computing them. Yeah, yes, Hardik. But if allow me to first complete my topic, then towards the end, when we take general questions, I'll be happy if we can take your salary question at that time. Fine, beta? So let me first start my topic, and then towards the end, after the time is over for our topic, we can take those doubts. No problem. Perfect. So students, if you all have understood up to this point, then let me proceed. Fine. Keep posting your questions. If there is something which you want me to unmute and you want to ask, let me know. I'll unmute you. So I hope these basic pointers about the entire income tax law and specifically computation of income under each head is clear to you all. Now, as I was explaining, for computing income, you need to follow the simple format of receipt minus expenses. That is a generic or simplified format. But we have a detailed format for each head. Like you would have studied under the salary head. You first take all the components of salary. You get the gross salary. From that, you deduct the deductions under section 16, which is standard deduction, deduction for profession tax, and deduction for your allowances, entertainment allowance for government employees only. So after deducting that, you get your income from salary. In the similar fashion, again, every head has its own format. The format for computation of income of the HP head is something like this. Now, as you can see, this is the receipt which we need to tax. But as I mentioned, it is not necessary that the receipt which you have actually received is what is considered. So there is some computation of this which we are going to study in section 23. So first see the charging section, that is the first section is section 22, which will tell you what incomes would be covered under this head. Once you identify that, okay, these are the receipts which I have to cover under the HP head, then you will come to section 23 to compute as to what amount would be considered over here in this format as the receipt under this head, which is over here called as the gross annual value, GAV. Fine. Now, as I mentioned over here, what is actually covered under this head is the rent that you get from this particular source. We are going to discuss in detail in section 22 when we read the charging section in the next slide, but just I'm giving you a broad idea to explain you this format. Now, after computing the gross annual value as per section 23, what we are going to study, from this, the first deduction that is allowed is deduction for municipal tax paid. I'm sure you all would be knowing what is a municipal tax. Everybody would be getting this once a year. In some states, it is 6 monthly. In some states, it is even quarterly, but generally it is once a year. In Hindi, Marathi, or in different languages, it is also called as Gharpatti. Yes, you are right. It is also called as sewerage tax, property tax. So these are the common words, Hardik and Hasi, you all are right, that are used. Now, there are two important conditions attached to this. What can be deducted over here requires two conditions. Yes, Rati Malini, it is house tax also. The two conditions are, firstly, this amount should be paid. So if in the sum they have mentioned outstanding municipal tax, it will not be deductible. Now, please understand the exams that we are preparing for is May 2025, correct? So the assessment year will be 25-26. The previous year would be the current year going on, that is 24-25. Now, when I say this, now I will take a practical case that in the exam they have given that the municipal tax for this year 2024-25, which is your previous year, is rupees 20,000. Now, if they say nothing, you can very well assume it is paid. You can deduct it from here and it will be your deduction. Second, if they say it is outstanding, you will not deduct anything. If they say that this tax is paid, it is paid on 4th April 2025. Now you have to answer me in the chat box by writing Y for yes or N for no. My question is it allowed as deduction in the present computation? You will write N for no, you will write Y for yes. So in the question they have given that municipal tax for 24-25, which is rupees 20,000, is paid on 4th April 2025. Excellent. So nearly everyone has given me the correct answer, that it will not be allowed as deduction because it should be paid in the current financial year. So payment, obviously here, when the word payment is used, it also implies payment during the year. So since it is not paid during the current financial year, that is 24-25, of which computation we are doing, hence it will not be allowed in the computation of AY 25-26. Yes, Hardik, you're right. It will be allowed in the computation of 26-27 AY. Now, I modify this question. 23-24, it was again 20,000. And it is said that both these amounts you have paid on 4th April 2024. Both these amounts. Now my question is, again for this year, for which we are doing computation, deduction will be allowed for what amount? You may not type the entire amount. If you want to say 20,000, you may write 20. If you want to say 40,000, you may write 40. If you want to say nothing will be allowed, you may write nil. If there is any other answer, you may put that. So my question is, for the assessment year 25-26 relevant to the previous year 24-25, what will be my deduction if it is given that 23-24, 24-25, both taxes were 20,000 each, and both I have paid on 4th April 2024. So answer is what? 20, 40, nil, or any other answer? Vedant, you have written nil. May I know how nil? Why nil? Vedant, can you explain me? Even Aisha has written nil. So Vedant, Aisha, you both have said nil. I would like to know why nil. I want to know what will be the deduction for this year, the year for which we are computing. The answer is 40,000. See, same logic. The same logic. What does the law says? The law says for this particular item, that is municipal tax, we are following the cash basis. Simple. The answer is simple. It is cash basis. Vedant, how the limit has gone, beta? I have changed the year also. If you can see, I have changed the year to 2024. Let me write it like this, if by chance it is creating confusion. So I don't think the time limit for payment has gone. Yes, Vedant? Okay, students, I hope everybody understood. Okay, Tanya wants to say something. Let me unmute her. Tanya, go ahead, beta. Tanya, I have unmuted you. I think she may have raised hand by mistake. Tanya, you want to say something, beta? Okay. If by chance you want to say something, please raise your hand again so that I'll get to know this. Fine. So students, it is 40,000. Now I have a follow-up question from Kasak. Sir, what will be the answer if, let us say, in this question, you have paid 2,000, 25, 26, 20,000 tax in the current year, which means you have paid tax in advance. Then what will be the answer? Whether I will get deduction of municipal tax paid of the next year in the current year? Answer is yes, because simple, understand it is cash basis, but also at the same time, please understand and appreciate the rule is applicable only to one item, that is municipal tax. Don't apply this rule of cash basis to everything. Only for municipal tax, the condition is it is allowed on payment basis, that is in short cash basis. Yes, beta, Vidushi. Whatever paid should be allowed. Correct? Somebody is asking how to pay 40,000, sir. But see, advance payment is also allowed. You can go to the department and say, I want to pay tax for the next year. They will give you the advance invoice. You can pay it. There is no problem. And nowadays, in fact, you can go and check online also. All these are available. You have online links for everything. You can again go and pay it online also. But not a problem, right? Now, so in this format, the first point that I made clear about municipal taxes, it is allowed on payment basis. But there is one more follow-up condition. It says payment by whom? Payment by the owner. I will add one thing, not by tenant. Notice this, not by tenant. Not by tenant means, see, let us say my property I have given to you on rent. So I am owner, you are tenant. There are rent agreements which may say that municipal tax of this property will be paid by you. So in the current year of which we are doing computation, you as per the contract has paid the municipal tax. Now income is earned by me. This HP computation applies to the owner, not to the tenant, right? Because owner is getting the rent. So we do this computation in the hands of the owner, that is the income earner. Now in this particular case, whether owner, that is myself, whether I will be getting this deduction, answer is no. Because the condition is I should or I will get the deduction only if I am the owner of the property, because this computation is for the owner, because owner is the one who will be receiving the rent. So owner has to pay it, and if owner has not paid it, in that particular case, if tenant has paid it, owner cannot get the benefit of that deduction because owner has not paid it in the first place. Fine, students? Advance payment year tax deduction, it will not be allowed. Yes, obviously, beta. So if you have taken deduction of 25-26 in the current year, obviously in 25-26 you'll not get the deduction of the same amount again. So it will be allowed only once. So after deducting this municipal tax, which has two conditions, one, it should be paid, second, it should be paid by the owner. When both these conditions are satisfied, you deduct this. So you get the figure which is now called as NAV, that is net annual value. And now from this, you deduct the allowable deductions which are mentioned under section 24. These are clause A, clause B. Now, clause A is a standard deduction, but it is slightly different from salary. In salary, you had a fixed amount. Here, the amount is not fixed. Here, the percentage is fixed. So, whatever is the NAV, for example, let us say my NAV comes to rupees 5 lakhs. Now, here, the deduction which I will get on account of 24 clause A, that is standard deduction, will be 30% of NAV. So, it will come to 1,50,000. And then second deduction is if I have taken any loan, which is over here called as borrowed capital, loan for this particular house property, then the interest applicable on this loan will also be eligible for deduction. Now, please pay attention here. They have not used the word paid. So when we'll study the conditions under section 24 clause B, you'll get to know that for interest, the payment is not a condition. Interest will be allowed as deduction even on accrual, need not be paid. So see, within the same head, you have different provisions, different rules for each item. And that is where the tax law becomes very vast, at times may be complicated. And this is what is now perused, that in the new direct tax code, they would be simplifying this, whereby they would be removing or reducing such discrepancies, or may not be discrepancies, I'll say disparities, that within the same head, within the same format, you have given two different provisions. So one is saying it will be allowed on payment basis. The other one is not saying anything. So as per the implied rule, it is on accrual basis. So students, this is how you end up getting the final income or loss. Whenever we say income, please be clear, it may also be a negative figure. So it may also be a loss. Though the heading of the head is only income from house property, even if there is a loss, that will also be covered here, considered here. Yes, Aniruddha, you're right. So interest is on accrual basis, municipal tax is on payment basis, and standard deduction is anyways a fixed figure 30%. So once you get NAV, 30% standard is always allowed. That is why it is standard. Standard means fixed. Hardik, what is this 5 years? I didn't get you. 5 years is what? PPI. What is PPI 5 years, Hardik? What interest 5 years? There is a concept of taking 1/5 over the 5 years, that is for pre-construction interest, that we'll study in detail. See, right now I'm not giving you details of any of the provisions that we are going to study as we proceed with this head. Anybody has any doubts with any of this computation part, that is the format part? Anybody, any questions? No? Super. So let us proceed then. Okay. Sai has something to ask. Yes, Sai.
Sir, if tenant paid the municipal tax and in the next month rent, if it is deducted and paid to the owner, then whether it is paid
Yes.
as owner or
Deduction
paid
is
as
allowed.
tenant.
In that case, a deduction is allowed. Reason is, in that case, it is temporarily paid by the tenant, but actually it is suffered by me because ultimately I have adjusted it from my rent. It means I have paid it. So in that case, I will get the deduction.
Okay.
Fine, Sai?
Okay.
Great. Okay. Now, as somebody was telling me, ki, sir, there are deductions also. Yes, there are exemptions. So this is a list of the cases where under Section 10, house property income is allowed as exemption. That is, in following cases, these people will not be required to pay any tax on their house property income. Right? Fine. Now I come to the main part, that is the charging section. So what is the charging section? It is the first section of each head. It is the section which will tell you what would be covered under this head. It is the first section of the head. I've taken the bare section because whenever I am dealing with taxation laws, I prefer reading the bare law, then going to the simplified law. So what it says, what will be taxed under this head is the annual value. So interestingly, they are not using the word rent, but yes, please understand, we are talking about rental income only. But then why did they not use the word rent? This is also interesting to note. For a simple reason, please understand and appreciate the students that when we are talking about taxation laws, the lawmaker does not want to miss out any opportunity only because of the usage of language. It should not happen that I am using the word rent and somebody else says, no, what I am paying is lease or higher charges or some management fees, etc., etc. There can be different terminologies used. I do not want to miss out on taxing any of these incomes if it is falling within my taxing provisions. So in order to avoid that, they have purposefully not used the word rent. Otherwise, this head would have been limited to one source. I do not want to limit to that source. So they have used a generic word. What they want to distinguish is what is not annual value. It is the one-time value. And what is this one-time value? It is the sale price. So see, they are further saying that we will be taxing what? Annual value of buildings. The question or the point is, a building may have another receipt also, that is a one-time value which it will get whenever it is selling that particular building. Now, when you are going to sell the building, you will get a one-time value. Annual value is what will accrue to you annually, which may be in the form of rent, lease, hire, management fee, whatever you call it. So what is the differentiation between annual value and any other value is opposite to annual value is the one-time value. So one-time value, if you are getting, that is from sale of this building, it will not be covered over here. It may be covered under the head capital gain if this building is held as a capital asset. And if this building is a stock in trade because you're a builder, you are a dealer in buildings, then the same sale price for you will be covered under the head business and the computation would be done accordingly. So I hope you understood why the lawmaker have used the word annual value and what it actually covers. It covers the rental income only, right? Now, further. So what does the charging section says? They will tax what? Annual value. I've explained what it means. Annual value of what? Of property which consists of buildings or land which is appertinent to the building. Now here we have to analyze certain things. So firstly, buildings are covered, or annual value of buildings are covered, and then land appertinent to building. Now I'll first explain what is this second part, land appertinent. So appertinent, if you're finding it difficult, you can use a parallel word, attached to. Another parallel word, forming part of. Yes, Aniruddha, you're right. Now, so I'm first explaining you the second part. They have said that will cover annual value of property. Property will include two things, either building or land which is appertinent. Appertinent means attached to, forming part of. I'll say, sir, please give example. I'll give you real life example. See, if you are staying in a housing society, there may be multiple buildings. But along with these buildings, you have open spaces, which may be for parking, which may be some jogging track, which may be some recreation area, etc. And these parts, which are open spaces, are always part of the entire building complex. They are not independent to the building complex. In fact, the whole building complex is this area, out of which some part is consumed in the building, or it is part where the building is standing, but the other part which is around the building, which is very well part of the same complex, is what is the open spaces. That is the land portion. But it is which land portion? Which is appertinent to, which is attached to the building. It is not independent of building. Please understand this. What is opposite to this? That is what will not be covered under the head HP. What will not be covered is rental income of vacant land. So when you are having open space, only land, no buildings, it is called as vacant land. Now we have so many examples, like there are many in our Gujarat, in our Delhi, like the Ram Leela Maidan. In our Gujarat, we have so many open spaces where our this Garba and Dandiya programs are organized. Many times in all these major cities, wherever any celebrity comes and they want to have an open program, so on an open piece of land, they will have Talkatora Stadium, for example, or for that matter, any open piece of land, they will make the setup of that particular event, and that event would be held in that particular space. That is the vacant land, and the rent that is received from vacant land will never be part of the head HP because it is not fitting in the charging section. See, this is the importance of the charging section. Yes, Abhishek, like we have seen Baba Ramdev's yoga classes, yoga sessions being held in open ground where a stage is constructed and people are given mats to lie down in the open space. Again, that land is taken on rent. So the rent of such land is never forming part. Yes, Aniruddha, you are right. So where it is a school building, where it is a our residential complex building, and the land which is part of that building, which is purposefully kept open, vacant for the building. And if that land is given on rent, let us say the open space with that particular building is given on rent to one of the members. So one of the members wants to host a birthday party, and the building rule says that, okay, you can take this open space, the garden space of the building, and we will charge you nominal 15,000 as the rent. This rent will be part of HP head because now this garden is part of that building complex. Similarly, our schools, our colleges also has some open space which is used as the playground of the school, etc. Even, yes, see, roof space is anyways, but the part of building only. So for that, we need not go to the land part. Roof, open roof is always building. So open roof space is anyways covered in building. That is not a problem. It will not be covered in the land part. So even your school grounds, which are part of the school building, if they are given on rent for any event, the rent received from such land would be always part of HP because it will be appertinent to the building. I hope now everybody is very clear about the appertinent part as to what will be covered, what will not be covered. Vacant land, if it is, there is any vacant land, the rent from such a vacant land will never be part of HP head. Either it will be the PGBP, that is a business head, or it will be the other sources head, depending upon whether giving on rent is your business or not. Yes. Tanya. Tanya, I have unmuted you. Tanya, beta, is your audio not working? I have unmuted you, Tanya. Jinky, beta, I'm not able to understand what you mean by there is open for only even fashion. I am not getting, beta. You may unmute and ask your question. Yes, beta, Tanya, nobody is, I think, able to hear you. Not only me, nobody is able to hear you. Riddhi, beta, that depends upon the rules of the building. If the building requires that any payment has to be made, you will have to make the payment. Aniruddha Singh, sir, vacant land not appertinent to any building given on rent will come under which head? As I said, it will come under the head business, or it will come under the head other sources, Aniruddha. That depends upon whether giving on rent is your business or not. So if I'm having an open space and it is lying idle and somebody asks me for that space and I give it to rent, it is other sources. But where it is my business to give that particular open space on rent, like all these stadiums and all, as I mentioned, where regularly these live events are being held. So those are held for giving on rent. That is their main business. So for them, the rent of that vacant land will be falling under the head business. No, Vidushi, we are coming to your question. That is my next point, Beda. So Aniruddha, it will be yes, both. So I hope now everybody is clear with the vacant building part. Now coming to an interesting part. I'm just rubbing out now what is not required to create more space for me to write. Now we come to the main part, that is rental income of buildings. Now you may have two types of buildings. One is your residential, what we call as home or house, and the other is commercial like shops, godowns, etc. And within this further, both these buildings may be either self-occupied, that is you are using it for your own purpose, or it may be let out. Let out means it is given on rent. Now my first question to y'all may write RC, or if you want to say both, you may write B, which means both. Now my question is, under the head HP, which we are studying, the rental income of residential buildings are only covered, or only commercial buildings rent is covered, or both residential and commercial, both building rents is covered. So Vidushi, I hope this was your question, which you were attempting to ask. Good. Majority of you all have given the correct answer. It is rent of both the buildings. Now see why this question becomes pertinent, because many times the confusion is created by the heading of the head itself, which says income from house property. And in general, when we say house, we visualize our home. But this is where students, what is very important in reading the law is not the headings only, it is the actual content. So if you read the charging section, it makes it clear what does the lawmaker wants to cover. They want to cover rental income of any building. Any will mean residential, commercial, it will mean self-occupied, it will mean let out. Any building of any type put to any use will be covered under this head. Obviously, we have exceptions. I'm coming to exceptions. So that is yet to come. But for the time being, whatever we have discussed, any building, whether residential, commercial, self-occupied, let out, all are covered under HP as of now. Yes, Kumara Sen, you have some question, Bida? Kumar Sen, please, if you have any question, put it across. Okay. Bhavna is raising. Okay, Bhavna.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर।
Very good afternoon, beta. Tell me.
सर अगर सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड हाउस एक से ज्यादा हो
बेटा
तो
वो सब सी
दोनों हाउस
सुनिए,
कवर्ड हो।
मेरी बात सुनिए। सबसे पहले हम क्या डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, इस हेड में क्या कवर होगा। आंसर इज फिलहाल ये सब कवर हो रहा है इस हेड में। अब एक है, एक से ज्यादा है, दो से ज्यादा है, उसका क्या होगा वो अभी अपन जैसे जैसे आगे बढ़ेंगे आपको सारी बातें पता चलेगी। ठीक है ना।
ओके सर।
सो
ठीक है
फर्स्टली
सर।
माय फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, एक है, दो है, चार है, क्या वो एच की हेड में कवर होगा? आंसर इज यस। करेक्ट।
ओके सर। ठीक है।
विदुषी बेटा, सो हाउ इट मैटर्स, सी विदुषी का क्वेश्चन है, विदुषी इज आस्किंग अ क्वेश्चन कि सर व्हाई हॉस्टल्स चार्ज जीएसटी। द पॉइंट इज देयर एनी सच रूल दैट if you are paying income tax on a particular income, GST may not come? Answer is no. Both are different taxes. One is a direct tax, one is indirect tax. Both may be there on the same thing. Like whatever I'm earning today as a professional, my fees are attracting both taxes. In fact, everybody's income majorly is attracting both taxes. So there is no mutual exclusivity ki if GST is there, income tax will not be there. No, beta, I have not said this. Pallavi, I never said that where the building is given on rent to generate income, it will be PGBP. I did not say this. I said where giving on rent is your business. Correct. That is where, and that was the rule which I gave for vacant land. Please don't mix, beta. One small pointers have different provisions under the income tax law. As we just saw, municipal tax was on payment basis, but interest was on accrual basis. So whatever I have said till now was only for vacant land. For building, we have just started discussion first. Secondly, for vacant land also what I said, where giving on rent is your business. It may, I did not say it is your main source of income. Where giving on rent is main source of income, still it may not be falling under the head business. So please don't mix between two different things. Yes, Hardik, but I have unmuted you.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, beta.
Sir, commercial properties, sir, are usually given for business purposes, and usually those people who give commercial properties or rent, it is their businesses. Then, sir, why it is coming in HP?
Okay, I'll put it in a different way. See, we have people who are today retired, correct? Now, during their earning time, that is when they were working or they were doing business, as investment, they purchased a shop or a godown. Possible? We have so many examples of this.
Yes, sir.
Now, why did they purchase or invest in that godown? So that when they stop earning, that is when they get retired or when they get old, they should get a passive income of fixed income. Now they are getting rent on that shop or on from that godown or from that office. Now put this example into your question, beta.
Sir, yes, sir, it will come under HP.
So that's what I'm saying. And anyways, please understand this. When I'm giving a commercial property on rent, it is business for the other person who is going to do business in that property. For me, giving it on rent is not business. I hope you are understanding this. See, what the other person does of my property is none of my business. Na? And anyways, if it is a commercial property, please understand this. If it is a commercial property, anyways, the person is going to use it for commerce only. Commerce means business.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Na? So we cannot say that commercial properties will always be classified like this. So see, first thing, all buildings, whether residential, commercial, whether self-occupied, let out, all will be first falling under this headage. But as I said, there are still, I'm coming to the exceptions. But first, I hope the point up to this stage is clear to everyone.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sainath, I'll answer you. Just allow me some time. Abhishek, your question is also coming very soon. Now, now, this is answer to Abhishek's question. The next condition put over here is that the assessee should be the owner. If the assessee is not owner, then again the rental income will not be covered under the head HP. So let us say owner is Abhishek. Abhishek gave it to me and I am giving it to Hardik. Now Abhishek is charging rent to me, I am charging rent to Hardik. For Abhishek, the rental income will be HP. But for me, the rental income will not be HP. Again, it may be business head, which we call as PGBP, or it may be other sources head. When business head, if giving on rent is my business, then business head. If it is not my business to give it on rent, but only since I was having it and somebody wanted it, so I give it on rent, so in that case, it will be other sources. But in any case, it will not be HP. Why? Because I do not satisfy this condition. But Abhishek does. So since Abhishek is satisfying the condition, first it is building, it is annual value, not one-time value, and Abhishek is the owner. So for Abhishek, it is HP head. But for me, whatever rent I'm getting from the same building will not be my HP head income. It will be either business head or other sources head, because for getting covered here, I should be owner. If I'm not owner, the income is taxed under some other head with a different format of computation. See, what will differ with the head? What will differ is the method of computation. What will differ is the final net income that you get. So if you compute anything by the HP format and if you compute the same thing by the PGBP or other sources format, the final net amount which you get as income or loss will change. And that is where all this discussion gains importance. Pooja beta, why lease will not come under income from house property? I have already written here rental, lease, hire, everything. Na? That is what is the meaning of the word annual value. They want to cover all types of these cases wherever you are getting annually some income from that property. You call it as rent, lease, anything. Correct? Now, this entire charging section, whatever it is saying, I have put it in simplified language here. So according to me, there are broad three conditions to be satisfied for anything to be covered under the head HP. First, it should not be a one-time value. It should be a recurring value, annual value, which may be called as rent, lease, hire, whatever. Second, the property should be either building or land which is part of the building, attached to the building. So vacant land will not be covered in any case. And for the time being, buildings all are covered. But I'm saying time being because we are yet to discuss the exceptions. Then comes a third condition. Now this condition, if the assessee himself is a tenant, the income which this particular tenant assessee is getting will not be covered under the head HP. So this is called as subletting. So I have taken it on rent. So it is the first letting, and then I am further giving it on rent. It is called as subletting. So whatever rent I get from subletting will not be my business, will not be my house property head income. Anybody has any questions up to this point? I've purposefully kept some questions pending in the chat because there are more pointers to come. Let me come to those pointers first, then I will answer those questions. So I've intentionally not gone into those questions. Otherwise, it would have changed the direction of the discussion. So till now, I have explained the charging section, highlighting three major pointers. One, it should be annual value, not one-time value. Two, it should be of any building or of that land which is part of the building. So vacant land rent is not covered. And third, the person who is getting the rent, that is the assessee, should be the owner or deemed owner. Fine, students? Nitin, I think there may be some net issue, beta. Still, let me know if you're not able to hear me clearly. Now coming to the exceptions. Now things are going to get more interesting here. So what are the exceptions? Now, what do I mean by exceptions? Exceptions mean you have satisfied all these three conditions. So it is annual value, It is from building or land apportionment. For the time being, let us keep land apportionment aside. It is from building. Which building? Residential, commercial, any building, right? And of which you are the owner. So all three conditions are satisfied. Still, it is not taxed under the head HP. That means it is exception, what we are discussing. Now, the question is, pay attention. What are these exceptions? First, now this will be answering sign up first question. Now, even though you satisfied these three conditions, your income will not be falling under the head HP when first case, it is a composite letting and it is inseparable. What is composite? Composite means building plus assets or facilities are given on rent. Now, sir, what is the example of this? Simplest example is furnished flat or office. This is where you have given the place, the building, that is a flat or office, plus the furnishing. Second example is different types of malls, marriage halls. All these are again comprising of the area, the building, plus various assets or facilities. Now, this is firstly called as composite letting. Now, composite letting may be of two types. First is separable, the other is inseparable. Now, you'll say, sir, what is the difference? The difference is where giving this both together is compulsion. It is called as inseparable. Where giving both is optional, like many times in furnished flat. You want, I will give you naked flat. I have furniture, but you want, I'll remove it, you can take the naked flat. Or you want, I'll give you the furnished flat because anyways I have the furniture. So it is optional. Now if somebody opts for this, okay, give me furnished flat or furnished office, but it was never compulsion, it was optional. In that case, the law says bifurcate the rent between the rent of building and the rent of the furniture and assets. The rent attributable to building will be part of HP head and this will be part of the other sources head. When the composite letting is separable, separable means it was optional to give the assets and facilities along with the area. It was not compulsory, it was optional and he opted for it. Second example or second possibility of composite letting is inseparable, of which the best example is your malls, marriage halls, where it is a compulsion that along with the asset, I need the facilities. Like if you take a shop in a mall on rent, the mall owner is not only giving you the space, the mall owner is also giving you the security who's standing at the gate of the mall. The mall owner is also giving you the facility of centralized AC, the facility of elevators. So many facilities are given in the mall to one shop owner. These are by default, they are part and parcel. Otherwise, you'll not go to mall, you'll go and take a shop in a normal shopping complex. Why are you going to a mall? Because you know that there are more footfalls in the mall. Why? Because the person coming over there feels more privileged. And why the person feels more privileged? Because of all these facilities. And that is why for the same shop, which you may get outside also in a normal shopping complex at 1 lakh per month, here you are paying 2.5 lakhs per month. Why? Because along with the shop area, you are also getting other facilities and getting these facilities is a compulsion. This is what is called as inseparable. Now the rule is where you are getting the assets along with your building together, it is composite, first point. And second, if the giving of this assets along with building the facilities along with building is a compulsion. It is called inseparable. In such cases, the entire rent, total rent of that shop area also and plus the facilities also will not fall under the head HP because it is exception to the head HP. Then the entire rent will generally go to the business head because the mall owner is actually constructing and giving the mall on rent as a business. I hope this exception is clear to everyone. Now I'll just go to the questions. Somebody has asked me, current sir, which income head does commission comes under? But a commission will come under business head. It may come under other sources head depending upon what type of commission it is. And are you in the business of agency? If you are in the business of agency, commission will come under business head. If it is just you have cracked one of deals for someone and you got a commission, it will be other sources. Sir, will annual value include monthly payment also? But annual value का opposite is not monthly. Annual value का opposite Vedant is one-time value. So annual is just a word. It may include daily value also. It may include weekly value also, monthly also, quarterly also, and annually also. Right? Aniruddha is asking, sir, if an owner is letting out shops with centralized AC, that will be inseparable. Yes. See, when you are taking any shop with compulsory AC and all these things, it means it is composite letting and it is not separable. In fact, that is why you are going for that type of a shop and you also know that it will be costing more. So it will be inseparable and the entire rent will not fall under the head HP. Right? Yes, Sai.
Sir, I am talking from the owner's point of view. Sometimes the owners are giving entire amount as rent, single rent. Sometimes they are apportioning it as rent and other amenities. Which is beneficial in the point of owner's point of view, sir?
See, beta, tax laws do not go by the beneficial point of view. I'm assuming what you mean to say by beneficial is where the tax would be lower.
Beneficial correct? Or whether it is mandatory, both times.
That's why I'm saying, beta. See, understand this, Sai. I've explained something over here about separable and inseparable. This is what the law bifurcates. Optional, compulsion. Where it is optional to give that asset. So it was not compulsory to give furnished flat. I just said, okay, I'm also having furniture. Do you want? You said yes. So I will give you with furniture by charging extra. You say, no, I don't want furniture. I have my furniture. Give me naked flat. So I'll give you naked flat. In such a case, it is optional, which also means separable, where you will segregate the rent of place and the furniture, and both the rents would be taxed under different heads. So it is not beneficial, which will be taken as the basis for deciding this. It is the nature of the contract. So it is compulsory for you to follow this rule that whether the letting is separable or inseparable, you cannot go by the beneficial point. Is this clear, beta? I hope I've answered you.
But okay, sir. Whether the entire amount can be stated as rent, whether it is permissible, sir?
What entire amount? What?
If property is let out, sometimes they are rent amount, property rent and amenities they are bifurcating, na? So without bifurcating it, if we give it as the entire amount as rent, named it as rent, whether it is permissible?
See, law does not restrict you from making the contract in whatever fashion you want. So let us say you have put the entire amount as rent under one name only. Correct?
That I'm asking.
But when we are going to compute tax, if it is falling in this optional category, you will have to compulsorily bifurcate it into two parts because the tax treatment is under different heads. If it is coming in the compulsion category, anyways, you don't have to bifurcate because the entire rent will be going under the head PGBP. Correct, na?
Yes, sir.
Did you get my point? So you have put the entire amount under the one name, that is rent, right?
Yes, sir.
Now first check whether your case is separable or inseparable. If your case is inseparable, no problem, because in case of inseparable, anyways, we just discussed the entire rent would be going to the head PGBP. So you need not bifurcate it.
No, income from house property, sir. I'm telling.
Beta, I'm also answering you. Are you not understanding what I just answered? You gave a single name rent to the entire amount, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Now my point is, first check whether your letting is inseparable. If your answer is
Okay.
yes, sir, it was compulsory to give assets with the place, it means it is compulsory, it is inseparable. The
Yes,
entire
sir.
rent will go to which head?
Income from house property.
Beta, it will go to PGBP, business head. This is our first exception to HP head,
Okay. Okay.
where it was not compulsory to give both the things, it was optional. It means it is separable. Then the law says now you break up that rent which you have made common one figure, break it up into rent for the place, rent for the facilities. The rent for the place will go to HP head. The rent for the facilities will go to other sources head. So this is where you will break up the rent. Right, beta?
So if it is not bifurcated, entire will go to PGBP.
No, beta. That is not the rule. The rule is whether it is optional or compulsion. You have to first answer this, optional or compulsion. Whether it is
Okay.
optional or compulsion to give the asset with the place. What is your case?
We can give, sir. We can give. Na?
No, you are going by which option? It is compulsion or it was optional?
Compulsion, sir.
Compulsion. Then your entire rent will go to which head?
Uh,
PGBP.
okay.
Correct, na beta?
Okay.
This is what we are discussing.
Okay,
This
sir.
case
Yes.
is exception to the head HP. This is what we are discussing. If it exception to the head HP means what? It will never fall under the HP head. It will go to some other head. What is this some other head? It is the PGBP head. Correct?
Okay. 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 Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. Yes, Bhavna beta.
सर
बोलिए.
अगर कंपोजिट जो लेटिंग है वो ऑप्शनल है तो उस केस में फिर सेपरेबल होगा.
एग्जैक्टली आपको दोनों का रेंट अलग अलग करना पड़ेगा, जगह का और असेट का. जगह का रेंट हाउस प्रॉपर्टी हेड के फॉर्मेट में जाएगा और बाकी सब असेट्स का रेंट अदर सोर्सेज के फॉर्मेट में जाएगा. यू आर राइट.
ओके. यस सर. मतलब कंपोजिट लेटिंग अगर ऑप्शनल है तो सेपरेबल है, कंपल्सन है तो इनसेपरेबल है.
और इनसेपरेबल होगा तो उसका टोटल रेंट कहाँ पे जाएगा?
पीजीबीपी में.
परफेक्ट. Yes, Vidush is asking, sir, in case of inseparable, it will be treated as composite supply. But beta, it is not coming under the head HP income. Why? Because here we are not doing GST. You are applying this logic of GST head. Ki when it is composite, will take the main supply. But beta, that rule is under GST. We are studying income tax. So GST wala logic income tax में आप नहीं लगा सकते विदुषी. So when it is inseparable, it is exception to the head HP. Hence the entire rent, जगह का भी और asset का भी, the entire rent will not come under the head HP. We will not apply the GST logic of main supply, etc. I hope Vidushi I am clear. Riddhi is asking, sir, whose point of view you have to see under HP? Please understand, beta, we are seeing the point of view of the income earner. Who is earning the income? The person who is giving on rent. So we have to see it from the point of view of that particular person. But if you are asking about separable, inseparable, it depends upon the contract. That is, what does the contract intends? What was the intention of the contract? So generally it depends upon what property is given. Like I gave you example, in case of flats and office, generally it is separable. Again, there can be exception, but generally. Whereas in case of malls, in case of marriage halls, it is compulsory to give it together. Otherwise, it will not be a marriage hall. Correct? Abhishek beta, terrace is part of building only. So where you are giving flats and terrace together, it will still be treated as renting only of building. Correct? Now, if you are saying terrace is given as a facility, but still beta, the facility is the facility of building only. Now, you are not giving a different asset. When I say facility, it means some other asset facility is given, like lift facility is given, security facility is given. Correct? Yes, Pooja.
सर जैसे कि कंपोजिट रेंट के अंदर अगर सेपरेबल हो सर, मतलब हम मकान को और फर्नीचर को सेपरेट कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हम देते नहीं है उसे, मतलब सेपरेट में हम कहते नहीं कि हमें सेपरेट में देना है. तो उस कंडीशन में क्या होगा सर? एचपी में आएगा या नहीं आएगा?
सी, अगर आपका वो मकान और वो फर्नीचर साथ में देना ये कंपल्शन है एज पर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट.
मतलब हम उसे
आपको
सेपरेट कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हम करेंगे नहीं, हम कहते हैं कि हमें उसे
सी
इकट्ठा ही
सेपरेट
देना
तो आप
है।
हमेशा ही कर सकते हो ना, उसका कारण मैं बताता हूँ। क्योंकि आपने घर अलग खरीदा होगा और फर्नीचर बाद में आपने अलग से बनवाया होगा, तो सेपरेट तो होता ही है वो, करेक्ट?
यस सर।
बराबर, तो सेपरेबल तो है ही। पर सेपरेबल कैसे है? क्योंकि आपने अलग अलग समय पे बनाया है। बात यहाँ पे सेपरेबल इंसेपरेबल की वैसे नहीं है। बात यहाँ पे सेपरेबल इंसेपरेबल की क्या है? आपने सामने वाले के साथ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया है, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट चाहता है कि आपने वो फर्निश फ्लैट ही देना है, देन इट बिकम्स इनसेपरेबल। सो ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से डिसाइड करना है कि क्या वो चीजें साथ में देना, ये कंपल्शन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का है क्या। आप उसे सेपरेट कर सकते हो क्योंकि आपने तो अलग अलग करके ही दोनों चीजें बनाई या खरीदी होंगी, करेक्ट?
यस सर।
सो आप उसे अलग कर सकते हो, इज नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट। पॉइंट इज व्हाट, कि क्या कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में उसे साथ में देना ये रूल है, या कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में ऐसा कोई रूल नहीं था कि साथ में देना है, आपने अपनी मर्जी से उसे साथ में दिया है। जैसे आपने
ओके।
सामने वाले को चॉइस दी कि भाई मेरे पास ये साथ में है, आपको दोनों चाहिए क्या? सामने वाले ने हाँ बोला, इसलिए आपने दोनों दे दिया। मगर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में कंपल्शन नहीं था कि आपको दोनों देना ही पड़ेगा,
ओके
करेक्ट?
सर, अंडरस्टूड।
आर यू गेटिंग द डिफरेंस बेटा?
यस सर।
गुड. Sir, if owner is letting out a flat but the society has facility of club, lifts, covered parking, etc. provided by developer, what is the treatment? बेटा दोनों जन अलग अलग चीजें दे रहे हैं। ओनर अपना रेंट फ्लैट का ले रहा है अनिरुद्ध, और सोसाइटी बाकी चीजों का ले रही है। इन दैट केस दे आर टू डिफरेंट थिंग्स। उसका ट्रीटमेंट हमेशा सेपरेबल वाले लॉजिक से होता है बेटा। श्रुति कुमारी इज आस्किंग पार्किंग विद बिल्डिंग इज फॉलिंग अंडर एचपी। यस बेटा, क्योंकि वापस पार्किंग इज पार्ट ऑफ बिल्डिंग ना, इट इज द लैंड अपॉर्चुनेंट टू बिल्डिंग, तो वो बिल्डिंग में ही माना जाएगा। सो फिर उसके कॉम्पोजिट बोलेंगे ही नहीं, और जब कॉम्पोजिट बोलेंगे ही नहीं तो फिर सेपरेबल इनसेपरेबल एचपी या दूसरे हेड का सवाल आएगा ही नहीं। फाइन। सी ये सही तरीका है टैक्स पढ़ने का। जनरली हम टैक्स कैसे पढ़ते हैं? हम काफी सिंप्लीफाइड वे में पढ़ते हैं, हम सिर्फ उसको थियोरटिकली पढ़ते हैं। जैसे मैंने बहुत सारे दूसरे क्लासेस में देखा है कि वहां पे इसे बहुत सिंप्लीफाइड तरीके से बता के खत्म कर देते हैं। मुझे नहीं लगता कि एचपी हेड के केवल इस पॉइंट पे इतनी देर डिस्कशन होता है। जनरली आई हैव सीन मेनी क्लासेस आर ओनली गोइंग बाय दी computation part. But students, please understand, in our exams now you have MCQ questions which are case study based. Plus tomorrow once you become a chartered accountant, these are the real life challenges that you are going to face. Plus even in your CA final paper, you get such type of questions. So please, I encourage everyone to ask questions. Please don't feel shy whether it is matching or not matching, etc. Right? Now, second interesting exception, property used by owner for purpose of carrying on his business or profession. This is again an exception. Means जहां पे आप उस हाउस प्रॉपर्टी में अपना खुद का बिजनेस चला रहे हैं, where you are running your own business in that property, so that property will not be covered under the head HP. So where you means the owner are using that property for running your own business. So where own business is run in that shop, in that office, that shop, office, etc. will not be covered under the head HP. It will go to the head business. Yes, you all are correct. It will go to the head business. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting. Please pay attention. Now you are in the business of letting out of properties. सबसे पहले please understand the difference between this and this. Here you are using that space for running your own business. Your business can be anything, like you are running a CA office. The office that you are using is what is falling in second point, where you are using that space for running your own business or profession. वो जगह HP हेड में नहीं आएगा, it will go to PGVP. Now the second thing is you have properties which are let out, means which are given on rent, and giving property on rent is your business. So what is your business? Your business is giving the properties on rent. भाड़े पे देना यही आपका बिजनेस है. So you have started a business where there are multiple properties with you, and these properties you are giving on rent. This is your business. I hope you understood the difference between this and this. Now, up to last year, please now pay attention, student. This is an amendment of the recent budget, so it is very important for your exams. You can mark this that 100% you are going to get a question on this. 100%. Because this is the recent budget amendment. So please pay attention. Now, you are giving the property on rent, and giving the property on rent is your business. So your business is giving properties on rent. Now, up till the last year, yani before your May exams, the law said whether you are giving residential or commercial property, and giving it on rent is your business. So your business is giving residential property on rent. Your business is giving commercial property on rent. Any property you are giving on rent and giving on rent is your business. It was coming under the head PGBP. This was up to last year. That is up to the last exam, which is happening in January. However, maybe for January also they may have amended, but at least for our May exams, now this rule is amended. What does this rule says? You are in the business of giving commercial properties on rent. So giving commercial properties on rent is your business. This will fall under the head PGBP. However, you are in the business of giving residential properties on rent. So giving residential property on rent is your business. Now, from this year, this will not fall under the head business. It will be falling under the head house property. So this is the latest amendment by Finance Act 2024, which was passed after the election results. That is, this is the second Finance Act. We had the first Finance Act in February 2024, which was called as interim budget because it was before the election results. After the election results, in June, July, we had the final budget for this particular year. And in this budget, they have brought this major change. So now, from this year, there is a difference. You are engaged in the business. Which business? Business of giving properties on rent. Okay. Now, if you are giving commercial properties on rent, this is your business. It is part of PGBP head. But if you are giving residential property on rent, this is your business. It will not be part of business head. It will now from this year be part of house property head. So let us say I have 10 flats. I have purchased these flats with the intention to run a business. What is this business? That I will give it to students, I will give it to different working people who are coming and staying in my city for the purpose of their studies or for the purpose of their jobs, etc. So I am giving residential properties on rent, and giving this is my business. It will now fall under the head HP. But I have purchased shops, offices, godowns, and I am in the business of giving these shops, offices, godown on rent. Giving commercial property on rent, if this is your business, it will be part of business head. So from this year, the law has made this distinction. Please be clear with this. Vedant is asking like if TCS gives whole TCS plant to Reliance. Yes, Vedant, this will be which head? It will be PGBP head. Aniruddha, sir, how it is established that letting out property is a business? But this is the main question. How you establish that whether that particular activity is your business or not? For this, there are some generalized rules which we follow. What are these rules? That where you are holding the property with the intention of giving it on rent as a business. Now, when you say, sir, what do you mean by giving it on rent as a business? It means, see, how a businessman thinks. See, what is opposite to businessman? It is an investor. Like if I have surplus money, I will invest somewhere and I will get rent. This is not a businessman approach. What is a businessman approach? Okay, I feel this is going to be profitable. This area is the prime area. This location is the key location. I may have money or not, but I want to do this. I plan everything. Either I raise my own funds or I go to bank or I take loan from someone, but I do this with a proper planning, with a proper vision. That is business. Where I have invested in some property. Why? Because I was having surplus money. So I invested. It is not a business. I hope you are getting the difference, Aniruddha. So your question is very appropriate. How do you identify whether it was your intention to run it as a business or not to run it as a business? This is the difference. Sai is asking, sir, if assessee is not in the business of letting out of property. So, okay. So now you are an investor. You're not in the business of letting out property. In that particular case, if he let out a single or two commercial properties, whether it will become house property, answer is yes. See, when Sai, you may have 1, 2, 3, 4 property, it does not makes it a business. As I just explained, Sai, if I am having surplus money, I keep on buying. So let us say after first 2, 3 years of my service, I bought a small 1 BHK flat. Then after more 2, 3 years, I bought another 3 BHK flat. After more 3, 4 years, I bought a shop. Now these things I am doing just because I am having surplus funds. Now I may have 3 or 4 properties. But all this, what is my thought process? Ki bhai, when I will retire, I should get a fixed income so that I need not worry for my retirement. Then it is not a businessman. Businessman does not think like this. Businessman will say, okay, this is prime location. Let me buy 2 or 3 flats or shops here. I will arrange money from anywhere. I will plan everything. I will do marketing. See, this is also very interesting. When I do it as a business, I will do it in such a sense that I will have a proper app from where I will market it so that I will get maximum customers. I may keep an attendant over there who will regularly clean it. So these are certain ways how which you identify whether it is your business or not. Correct? Okay, super. I hope everybody is understanding what we are discussing. This is one of the most important parts of this particular exam. Fine.
सर
Sambeshwari, go ahead.
अगर हेलो सर
बोलो बोलो.
सर अगर हमने प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पे ली है और उस पर हम बिजनेस कर रहे हैं
बेटा एक बार आपने
तो वो
प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पे ली, मेरी बात सुनिए, आपने एक बार प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पे ली, वो एचपी हेड में आता ही नहीं है, क्योंकि एचपी हेड में आने के लिए पहले आप ओनर होने चाहिए. द मोमेंट यू आर इन अ रेंटेड प्रॉपर्टी, आगे आप उसका कुछ भी करोगे वो एचपी हेड में तो नहीं आएगा. करेक्ट ना बेटा?
ओके सर. और सर ये जो सेकंड पॉइंट है इसमें कि प्रॉपर्टी ली है हमने, जो कमर्शियल प्रॉपर्टीज है वो हम रेंट पे दे रहे हैं और वही हमारा बिजनेस है. सर अगर हम 2-3 प्रॉपर्टीज रेंट पे दे, कमर्शियल प्रॉपर्टीज रेंट पे दे, तो क्या वो पीजीबीपी के अंदर आएगा?
बेटा आप एक भी कमर्शियल प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पे दोगे मगर वो रेंट पे देना अगर बिजनेस है तो पीजीबीपी में आएगा. अभी मैंने किसी के क्वेश्चन को आंसर किया, वो 1 या 2 से फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. इट इज नॉट डीलिंग विद वेदर 1 है या 2 है. अगर आपका बिजनेस है रेंट पे देना, फिर एक प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पे देना भी विल बिकम पीजीबीपी. इज दिस क्लियर? तो
सर ये
1 या
कैसे
2 देख
प्रूफ
के
होगा
बेटा अभी
कि
मैंने
वो
एक्सप्लेन किया. बेटा आप वही चीज रिपीट करोगे तो कैसे चलेगा? मैंने अभी कैसे क्या एक्सप्लेन किया कि कैसे डिसाइड करते बिजनेस है या नहीं, आप बताओ. अभी शायद इसके पहले का 5 मिनट डिस्कशन वही था ना, कि
यस सर,
कैसे हम
बट वो
डिसाइड
अच्छे से
करते
क्लियर
बिजनेस है या
नहीं
नहीं है.
था.
यस जिनकी बेटा.
हेलो, गुड इवनिंग सर.
गुड इवनिंग बेटा, प्लीज टेल मी.
ये सर एनी मतलब कोई पर्सन है, वो प्रोफेशनल है, मतलब वो एडवोकेट है और उसने एक गोडाउन परचेस किया है. फिर वो गोडाउन मतलब उसने रेंट पे दिया है, तो जो रेंट का इनकम आएगा वो एचपी में मतलब होगा कि उसका प्रोफेशनल में मतलब पीजीपी में जाएगा.
जी बेटा,
मतलब
पहली बात वो
प्रोफेशनल.
प्रोफेशनल इनकम में नहीं आएगा इस एग्जाम्पल में, क्योंकि यहाँ पे वो उसे एज अ बिजनेस नहीं कर रहा है. वो जो पैसे कमा रहा है अपने प्रोफेशन से, लॉयर के प्रोफेशन से, वहां से वो सरप्लस इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है किसी जगह में और वो जगह वो रेंट पे दे रहा है. तो ये कभी भी आपका बिजनेस नहीं होता है बेटा. इट विल ऑलवेज बी कमिंग अंडर द हेड एचपी. करेक्ट?
थैंक यू सर.
यस. Okay. Now, if you read the charging section says when your income will fall under the head HP, either when you are owner or deemed owner. Now, owner, we all know that I have purchased the property is registered in my name, so I am the owner. Now, the question is, what is a deemed owner? A deemed owner means a person in whose name the property is not registered. So on the paper, you are not appearing as a owner, but the law assumes you to be the owner. So where the law is assuming that you are the owner, that is what is deemed owner. So one is real owner, true owner, one is deemed owner. True owner, real owner is that person in whose name the property is registered. Deemed owner is that person in whose name the property is not registered, but the law assumes that this person is owner. Now, this list is given under Section 27 of the Income Tax Act. Now, Income Tax Act Section 27 says first, who will be considered as deemed owner? So, if I have transferred either to my spouse, that is in my case my wife, or to my minor child, any house property, and this is transferred except in connection with agreement to live apart, that is not because of divorce. And in case of minor child, it is not given to my married daughter. Now, practically today, minor and married will not go hand in hand. So practically this point will not come into picture in real life, but it is already there in the law. That is fine. Now, the point is, if I am transferring my house property to my wife or to my minor child without adequate consideration, that is like gift. So even today, though the property is in their name, they are appearing as the registered owner, but the law will say, Vishal, I will tax the income in your hands. I will deem that you are the owner. Why? Because maybe you have gifted them the property to evade tax. Because had the property been in your hands, you would have paid tax at the highest rate of 30% because you're already earning income from other sources and various sources, because of which you are in the highest rate of tax slab. But what you did, to reduce your tax liability, to evade your tax liability, you shifted these properties to others like your wife, to your minor children, so that that much income cannot come to tax and it can be evaded. Hence, they say, even though you have done this, even though today the property is appearing in the name of your wife or your minor child, but since you have gifted them the property, in that particular case, even though they are appearing as the owner, that is a registered owner, but the law says you will be considered as the owner, means only for the purpose of income tax law, I will be presumed to be the owner. Whatever HP income will come, it will be taxed to me. Second, holder of impartible estate. Now, please pay attention. What is an impartible estate? Impartible estate means that property of whose partition has not yet been done. Now, in that particular case, point is what? I'll firstly give you a real life example of this, like how I gave you of the first case. What is the real life example of this? So let us say today you are staying in a property which is inherited from your ancestor. Now, this is a very practical thing. Many of our cases, the property which we are today using is what belonged to my father, my grandfather, or my great grandfather. I have got it by inheritance. Till today, I have not put the name on my property. The property still appears in the name of my ancestors. In that particular case, the property is said to be an impartible estate. Now, in this particular case, the law says this is a very practical scenario that even today the property is appearing in the name of my grandfather, which is a real fact in my own case. Now, even though I have not got it transferred in my name, but since practically I am the one who is holding it means I am the one who is using it. I am the only person who is using this property. Hence, the law says I am deemed to be the owner of this property because nobody else is using this property. So I will be deemed to be the owner of this property. Second case. Now, what is this third case? Third case is where you are staying in a housing society. If you have seen this Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma, they always show that Gokuldham Housing Society. Now, I don't know whether you all know this fact or not, if you are staying in a housing society, even though you say that the flat in that housing society is purchased by you. Now, please pay attention. Even though you say that the flat is purchased by you, practically in real life, as per the law, the entire building is of the housing society. This is interesting. Many people are not knowing this. Pay attention. Point is that whenever you are holding a flat in a housing society type of a format, even though you may say that I have purchased this flat, but actually the entire building, the entire flat is in the name of the housing society, even though you have paid for it. This is a very interesting practical scenario in case of housing societies. Please keep this in mind. Now, in this particular case, the law says that even though the flat is in the name of the housing society, because that is how the housing society laws have been drafted. However, practically, you are the one who has paid for the flat. Hence, even though the flat is not in your name, because that is how the housing society laws have been drafted. Hence, in reality, because I am the owner, following the principle of substance over form, the law says they will assume that I am the owner. See, in reality also I am the owner, but at least on paper, somebody else is appearing as the owner. That is where the point is. Now, this fourth scenario is again a practical case which is covered in clause 3A of this section. What it says, where the property is in possession of a person in part performance of a contract. Now, this word will be repeated when we are going to deal with the capital gain head. What is part performance of a contract? Please understand. Part performance of a contract is again a practical scenario. So you may know this, that in many cases, it has happened that you have purchased a flat by making the payment to the builder. But for some reason, the builder has not yet transferred the flat in your name. The flat may still be in the builder's name or many times in the owner's name. This happens again practically. So practically what is happening, you have purchased the flat, you are staying in the flat, you have made the payment, but still you are not having the document in your name. Now, this section 53A of this Special Act Transfer of Properties Act, that is, this new section was added. Earlier, this section was not there. But to handle this practical scenario, this new section was added, which said that if you are having the if you are having the possession of that flat, that is, you are staying in that flat, you have made payment for the flat, then even though the flat is not transferred in your name, we will assume that you are the owner. So this particular act has already deemed that you are owner of such flats where for some reason the agreement has not yet been done in your name completely. So these are again practical scenarios. So both these, rather all these three are real life scenarios where actually you are owner, but for some reason the document is not registered in your. So the law says in all these three cases where in substance you are the owner, though on paper you do not appear to be the owner, but we will deem that you are the owner. So you will be eligible for, or you will be covered under the head HP. This particular point will be applicable to you as a owner. And the last scenario under this is where you are holding a building. How you are holding a building? You are holding the building under a long lease. And what is this long lease period of 12 years or more? In short, where you have taken a building under lease, you have not purchased it, you have taken it under lease, but the lease period is 12 years or more. The lawmaker says we presume that you are owner of that building. So wherever the lease period is 12 years or more, the law, at least for the purpose of tax, will assume that you are owner of that building. So these are the scenarios where you are not the registered owner, the property is not in your name, but the law presumes that you are the owner. That is why it is called as the owner, right? Yes, Kamlesh,
Yes, sir. Sir, I can't understand third point. I understand fourth and fifth also.
so what you did not understand, Beta?
Sir, in this entire plants holding in society, housing society, sir.
Yes, beta. So ये practical scenario है. In practical, if you are having a flat in a housing society, the housing society laws which are made by each state, if you read the Housing Society Act, the Housing Society rules, in that the ownership of the entire flat is with the housing society. So let us say I gave you example of Tarak Mehta in which they use the word Gokuldham Housing Society. So all the flats are ownership of Gokuldham Housing Society. Now here there is a very interesting input by someone. Let me say yes. Sainath was saying, ki, but we get share certificate. Exactly. So you are getting a share certificate, not the property is not registered in your name. You are only given a share certificate. That is what is the interesting point. They make you a member of the housing society. So you get a share certificate of the housing society means you become a shareholder of the housing society, not that you become the owner of the flat. So that is what is a better. See, these are all practical scenarios. When you study tax, many times the things you find very technical or difficult. Why? Because you have not seen that practically. So practically इसमें ये होता है कि वो flat society के नाम पे ही होता है. But as pointed out by Sainath, that you become the shareholder, इसीलिए आपको उसका ऑक्यूपेंसी सर्टिफिकेट मिलता है कि भाई आप इसको ऑक्यूपाई करो. सो दे अलाउ यू टू ऑक्यूपाई. This is what the law says. They don't give you the ownership. So in on paper you are not the owner, but in reality since you are the owner, hence the law says that in reality since you are owner, I will treat you as a owner. It means आपको ही उसका टैक्स लगेगा as owner. So this is what is a practical scenario, beta Tambeshwari. Have you understood this point?
यस सर, यस सर. इट्स मीन सर कि मतलब कि पेपर जो भी सर्टिफिकेट है उसके अंदर आपका नाम नहीं होगा, लेकिन रियलिटी के अंदर आप उसके ओनर होंगे.
That is what I said ना, substance over form. मैं ही मालिक हूँ क्योंकि मैंने पैसे देके खरीदा है.
यस सर. सर आई
Yes.
अंडरस्टैंड. ओके सर.
Now I have further questions. Sir, society rules follow करने पड़ेंगे. Yes, this is what is better Nitin given in the society rules. Please explain point two. Point two, I think I just explained. Vedant is saying, then sir, what want to sell my flat? Then what happens? See, you want to sell your flat, you sell the share certificate. आपको शेयर सर्टिफिकेट बेच देते हो. आपका फ्लैट तो वैसे भी आपका नहीं था, आपको सिर्फ वो शेयर सर्टिफिकेट बेचना है. सो इन रियलिटी आप फ्लैट का ही पैसा लेते हो, बट ऑन पेपर यू सेल द शेयर सर्टिफिकेट. फिर क्या होता है, फिर जो नया जिसको आपने बेचा है वो शेयर होल्डर बन जाता है, तो हाउसिंग सोसाइटी उसको ऑक्यूपेंसी करने का एक राइट दे देती. दिस इज हाउ द हाउसिंग सोसाइटी फॉर्मेट वर्क्स. So Pallavi is asking, sir, it means if I am living on rented house for more than 12 years, I'll be deemed to be owner. बेटा प्लीज पल्लवी डोंट मिक्स. आप उस घर के मालिक नहीं बनते हो. ओनली टैक्सेशन इज अज्यूमिंग यू आर ओनर. मतलब आपको उसके ऊपर का जो इनकम है वो एचपी हेड में आए, इसलिए इससे सिर्फ आपके हेड ऑफ इनकम का फर्क पड़ता है. आप मालिक नहीं बनते पल्लवी. So you do not become the real owner if you are staying in some place for more than 12 years. When this section says they assume that you are owner, it is only for tax purposes. Building on lease further let out to PVR comes under 3B. But it will be under 3B if the lease is for more than 12 years. Yes, you're right. Who will transfer ownership, housing society or owner? Acha, now you are saying understood. Kumar say, Marison says if we let out the property to a person who is staying for more than 10 years. But I think I just answered Pallavi's question, Kumaran. It is also your question. He will not become owner. Only tax assumes that he is owner. भावना बेटा इम्पार्टिबल एस्टेट मतलब आपके पास जो इनहेरिटेड जगह है, आप जब किसी इनहेरिटेड जगह में रहते हो अनिरुद्ध, व्हेन यू आर स्टेइंग इन अ इनहेरिटेड हाउस में भी डॉक्यूमेंट आपके नाम पे नहीं है, डॉक्यूमेंट आज भी आपके एंसेस्टर्स के नाम पे है. दैट इज व्हाट इज इम्पार्टिबल एस्टेट, बट इन रियलिटी नाउ यू आर द ओनर. करेक्ट भावना, अनिरुद्ध, आई होप यू ऑल अंडरस्टूड. Riddhi is asking, sir, if a child is major but not earning salary or above 18 purchases a flat, in this case, who has to pay tax? Riddhi beta, this particular point applies only till the time the child is minor. Once the child becomes major, भले वो नहीं कमा रहा है, still this point will not apply to that child. So this point is limited only to the scenario where the child is minor. Riddhi, I hope I've answered you. So I've covered all questions in the chat relating to this. Still, if there is any question pending which you have not understood, please feel free to ask. Okay, crystal clear. Good. Yes, Hardik.
Sir, sir, in case of impartible estates, sir, if HUF properties are inherited from their ancestors, sir, it also come under the impartible estate.
सी बेटा HUF प्रॉपर्टी इनहेरिट करता है ऐसा नहीं होता. पहली बात, HUF कोई जिंदा इंसान नहीं है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दिस. सो
Artificial
yes, it is, see, we call it as natural person, but it is created because
by
there is a family, and any property will become property of HUF not automatically. Like आपकी और मेरी property automatically होती है because I am somebody's child. तो उनकी property मेरी property हो गई automatically because of the Indian Succession Act, right?
yes, sir.
But this thing does not happen in case of HUF. In case of HUF, any property has to be given to HUF by making a proper will or proper gift deed. सो ये वाला इम्पार्टिबल एस्टेट वाला पॉइंट HUF को कभी आ ही नहीं सकता, बिकॉज HUF के नाम पर रजिस्टर हुए बिना वो प्रॉपर्टी HUF का बनता ही नहीं. करेक्ट?
तो सर सिर्फ ये चीज इंडिविजुअल के लिए है, जैसे
यस यस, इट इज ओनली फॉर इंडिविजुअल बेटा. यस,
ग्रैंड पेरेंट से कोई चीज इनहेरिट करूंगा.
एग्जैक्टली एग्जैक्टली, बिकॉज HUF की प्रॉपर्टी अपने आप बनती ही नहीं. इट हैज टू बी गिवन बाय वे ऑफ विल और बाय वे ऑफ सम गिफ्ट डीड इन द नेम ऑफ द HUF. कोई तो
सर
डॉक्यूमेंट बनाए बिना वो HUF की प्रॉपर्टी नहीं बनती. इन शॉर्ट, यू हैव टू मेक सम डीड फॉर दैट. और एक बार डीड बना दी तो फिर आप उसके रजिस्टर्ड ओनर हो गए, फिर वो इम्पार्टिबल एस्टेट वाला पॉइंट आया ही नहीं ना.
ठीक है सर. सर
अंडरस्टूड?
यस सर. सर एक और छोटा सा डाउट था.
बोलो ना
सर
प्लीज.
in case I am letting out a residential house property, only one, then also it will be then also it will be taxable in IFHB.
Until and unless it is your business.
नहीं sir, normal if I have purchased out
Simple,
of my
like
expense.
investment. Correct. Once it is out of investment, आपके पास पैसे पड़े थे, पैसे जमा किए, उससे आपने कोई भी प्रॉपर्टी खरीदी, now you are giving that property on rent, it will always follow under the head house property.
House property, yes sir.
Correct?
सर तो जब क्वेश्चन होगा केस सिनेरियोज में, तो वो हमको ये हिंट देगा कि ये
they will specifically mention this is your business. If they are not mentioning this is your business, you have to always take it under house property.
ठीक है सर.
ठीक है ना? So even if they are giving you 4 house properties but not mentioning that it is your business, because see, I can have 4 house properties ना, 2-3 तो मेरे inherit होंगे, एक आधा मैंने मेरे funds में से खरीदा होगा. Now again this is a practical scenario ना.
Yes,
See,
sir.
1 or 2 house properties you have inherited from your parents, 1 or 2 you have purchased. In that particular case, you are having 4 house properties, but still it is not your business, because your business is something else. You are doing running that business. This is side income. अपने आप हो रहा है वो. भाई आपके पास खाली पड़ी है कोई जगह, somebody comes and say कि मुझे रेंट पे दो, and you have given it on rent. आपने कोई रेंट पे देना ऐसा कोई बिजनेस मान के काम नहीं किया था, वो तो इनहेरिट होके आई प्रॉपर्टी, या आउट ऑफ योर स्पेयर फंड्स यू परचेज द प्रॉपर्टी. ऑल दीज थिंग्स will never be your business. Even though you have 4 properties which are on rent, it will not become your business. Correct?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, beta. I hope people, you are getting whatever we have discussed. Immediately after the class, I'll be uploading this. Please read it again. Tax laws का यही speciality है that there are multiple small variations. Like just now, what amendment happened this year is again an interesting variation, that where your intention is doing business, but if it is doing business of commercial property, it goes to PGBP head. But if it is doing business of residential properties, it is still HP head. So now such small variations, the law is means adding every time. And that is what is the beauty of taxation laws, where you have to be very minute in your reading and you have to take extra efforts to remember, because it is not so straightforward. There is no logic like what we do in costing, that okay, this is the logic, follow this logic, you will get the right answer. Taxation law goes by the logic of the lawmakers. Like this year, after so many years of income tax law, more than 6 years of income tax law, this year they felt that we should make a provision like this, so they changed the law today. That is why please understand, the law has to be read and remembered minutely for every point, and these may change over a period of time because it depends upon the lawmaker. Yes, Aniruddha. From this year, business of letting out of residential properties is now chargeable under the head HP because of the specific amendment in the law by the current year budget. Vidushi saying business में multiple repeated cases. Okay, fine. Now, till now we were on that part which will be asked by the examiner in case study questions. What you get as, we call it as case study questions, where a case study is given and then there are MCQs. So whatever we were discussing now was part of your MCQ question, and I've already mentioned that please be assured, guaranteed आपको वो एक MCQ question पक्का है about doing business of giving property on rent, and in that whether it is commercial or residential, that you have to minutely read, because that will change the answer. That is what is happening from this year because of this year's budget's amendment. Now onwards, what we are going to discuss is the practical part of HP head. So we just studied at the start in the format of HP head that how HP income would be computed. Once you have decided from all these 4-5 slides, whatever discussion we had, now you have concluded that my rent is coming under the HP head. Now the format of HP is you have to find out GAV, from that deduct municipal tax paid, you get NAV, from that deduct standard deduction 30%, from that deduct interest, you get HP income or loss. Now we are going to study each of these points in detail. So only 2 points require calculation. One is the GAV, one is the interest. Municipal tax, anyways, you have to just see the question, read the conditions and decide that whether it will be deducted or not. Standard deduction would be anyways 30% flat. So for these two, there is no workings. The workings are for GAV and for interest. And after that, the workings are for finding out total HP income or total HP loss under various scenarios. So now onwards, what we are discussing is relating to the practical part. Henceforth, till the end in the next lecture also, right? I will again request, please revise this, because in HP, in this small head itself, you have so many variations, so many ifs and buts. Please revise so that when you come back to the next lecture, you may raise your doubts again and questions again on this part. Now, we are on the practical part. Before I go to the complete working of HP income or loss under various scenarios, let us first start with the spare parts. So my first spare part is how to find out GAV. See, in simple words, GAV should have been the rent received, correct? However, it is not only the rent received. This is what is the special point. So what is GAV? That is what we get to understand from section 23. So 22 was the charging section. 23 onwards is computation. And in computation, the first point is GAV. So 23rd, the first section of computation deals with the first point, that is GAV. Now, to find out GAV, that is gross annual value, you have to first find out two different terms. The first term is expected rent. So you have to find out two terms. One is expected rent and the other is actual rent. And you have to compare these two terms to find out what will be GAV. So to find out GAV, you have to find out these two terms first. So let us first understand what are these two terms. First term is called as expected rent. In short, we will call it as ER. Now, how do we find out ER? So first is find out what is municipal rent, which we will call in short as MR. Now, what is municipal rent? Municipal rent is the rent as per the municipality records. So municipality in their records have fixed some rent for every area, for every property. So you have to get this figure from the municipal records as to what is the rent of your property as per their records. Now, second is find out what is the fair rent. Now we normally use this word fair market value. So find out what will be the fair rent. That is, if a property like yours is given on rent, that is a property which is in the same locality. If it is given on rent, how much normally the rent which you will get for a similar property. So in short, we call it as fair market value. So you have to find out what is the fair rent. We call it as the FR. And then comes the third figure. Sorry, before the third figure, The first answer is, what is ER? ER will be higher of these two figures. So you take these two figures, compare both of them. Whatever is higher is your expected rent for the time being. It is not yet final, but for the time being, this is your expected rent. So simply find out both these figures. Now in sums, both these figures are given. So you have to simply compare them. Whichever is higher is your ER for the time being. Now comes the third figure. The third figure is what is called as standard rent. Now this is the rent which is fixed by the Rent Control Act. Now let me inform you, Rent Control Act is not applicable everywhere. So everywhere in our country, Rent Control Act is not applicable. It means you will not have standard rent in all cases, because standard rent is the rent fixed by the Rent Control Act. And obviously it is fixed by the Rent Control Act only for those areas where it is applicable. There was a time during 1990s or up to 1990s where major parts were under Rent Control Act. Slowly, steadily, the government has started easing out this, and now very few areas are under Rent Control Act. So only in those areas you get standard rent. Otherwise, this figure is not there. Now, if this figure is not there, then you have already got the answer of ER. It is the higher of MR and FR. But if standard rent is given, then whatever is the higher figure, MR, FR, you take that figure. Let us assume out of MR, FR, FR is higher, for example. So now here FR figure, which is the higher of the two, is taken, and you compare it with standard rent, which is now I'll call it as SR. Now you compare the higher of MR and FR, which my example is FR. You compare it with standard rent. And now your answer is finally ER is lower of these two rents. So first is take whichever is higher out of this two. That figure compared with standard rent, whichever is lower. This is the final answer of expected rent. I hope students this is clear. Anybody having any questions, doubts, please feel free to ask. Business of letting out residential HP, municipal tax paid, actual accrual fine. Excluding amendments, if we are asked to calculate HP income, we have to calculate as per the laws applicable in that particular year. Correct, correct. Okay, fine. So there are no questions for me. I hope this is clear to all. Now, pay attention, students. So, MR, FR, municipal rent, fair rent, whichever is higher, and that figure compared with standard rent, whichever is lower. And as I said, Rent Control Act is not applicable in all cases. Where it is not applicable, then simply the higher figure that you got in first step is your answer of expected rent. Okay, now proceeding further. But you don't have to compute standard rent. Standard rent is fixed, Tambeshwari, by the Rent Control Act. So Rent Control Act gives you the standard rent figure. In exam sums also it is ready-made given. It is not computed. We don't compute the standard rent, Tambeshwari. Right? Now, what is actual rent? Actual rent is the rent for the whole year, which is called as annual rent, right? So actual rent is annual rent, that is the rent for the whole year, minus unrealized minus vacancy. Now I'm just putting a star because unrealized rent has to be deducted if you satisfy some conditions. Again, in the exam questions, if nothing is mentioned, you assume the conditions are satisfied, it means it has to be deducted. Now what is this? So this B part is dealing with your actual rent for which the property is given. So actual rent of let out property. So you have let out the property for some rent. That rent is what is covered here. Now firstly, you take the rent for the whole year, annual rent. From that, you deduct the rent of the unrealized period. What is this unrealized rent? In simple words of accounts, it is your bad debts. So you had given your property on rent to someone. That person ditched you. That person made some rent, bad debts, by not paying it, and now the person is gone. So the person is no more traceable. The person is no more within your tracing limits. The person has vacated the property. The person has fled, and some rent was recoverable from that person. That is what is now bad debts. Such bad debts rent is what is called as unrealized rent. I hope this is clear. Rati Malini, I will not say it is unpaid amount of rent, because unpaid amount of rent can be outstanding. And outstanding always is not bad debts. Like your debtors are not bad debts. Debtors are all outstanding. They are yet to pay you, but they are not bad debts. Correct? So similarly here, unrealized rent is not bad debts. But unrealized rent is the rent which you will not realize in future. It has been bad. It has been, again, Abhishek, but I will not agree to this. Accrued but not paid is again, beta, what is outstanding? Why you all are mixing between outstanding and bad debts? Again, the same question to you, Abhishek. Are your debtors bad debts? Answer is no. So, bad debts means the debtor is no more going to pay you. Either the debtor is dead, or the debtor has closed down the business, or the debtor is now underground, not traceable. Then you will say that whatever was outstanding is now bad debts. Similarly, where your tenant is absconding, has left your property, has fled somewhere, now the person is not traceable, and you have no hopes of getting the rent, then we say it is bad debts. Over here, unrealized. Yes. What is vacancy? Vacancy is, it is possible that for the whole year the property is not given on rent. So even though I am saying annual rent, but the property was vacant for 2 months. That is, there was no tenant for 2 months. You did not get any tenant. Nobody had come to your property. It means if you are saying annual 12 months, then deduct those 2 months because you did not have a tenant. Nobody was there occupying your property. So to that extent, obviously, there should be no tax. Hence, it is to be deducted if you are taking annual rent. Otherwise, normally what we do practically is we will directly take 10 months rent. What is 10 months? 12 minus 2. That is 2 months for which I did not have a tenant. So that will give me the 10 months rent, because that is truly the actual rent. So be logical. What is actual rent? Actual rent is the rent which you have actually earned. And what is vacant, you can never earn because there was no tenant from you can take rent. So by default, this has to be deducted. Now, once you find both these figures, what is GAV? GAV is higher of expected rent and actual rent. Now, when you are comparing both these figures, there are two possibilities. So when you compare actual rent and expected rent, the two possibilities are actual rent is greater than expected rent. Then your GAV is actual rent. So where your actual rent is greater than expected rent, GAV is actual rent. Where opposite happens, expected rent is greater than actual rent. Now here the law is very interesting. What does the law says in such case? It says check whether expected rent is greater only because of vacancy. That is, if there was no vacancy, then AR would be greater than ER. Now this is interesting. So when ER is greater than AR, what does the law says? Law says, wait, I will not say GAV is ER directly. I will say first check whether this ER is looking greater only because of vacancy. Means what? If there would have been no vacancy, let us say for whole 12 months, I would have had tenant, then AR only would be greater, not ER. So if the ER is looking greater because I have vacancy. Because if you remember in AR, while calculating AR, we have reduced the vacancy. It means if my ER is greater only because there was vacancy this year, there is no other problem. In that particular case, the answer will be same. GAV will be AR. But if this is not the case, then GAV will be ER. Now, maybe what I just explained or what is the language of the law may not be very clear to you. No problem. When we take practical, you'll understand this. So first, find out ER and ER. How to find out? We have just discussed. Now, if your AR is greater than ER, don't see anything else. Directly your answer is GAV is AR. Because logically also you have to pay tax. You should pay tax on actual rent. So GAV is AR. But where ER is greater than AR, the law is not saying directly GAV is ER. This is not directly. They will say, okay, if ER is greater than AR, okay, first come down. Let us do this on calculator and check that whether ER is appearing greater only because there was vacancy. Means if there was no vacancy, then my AR would be greater. If this is the case, that ER is looking greater, is appearing greater only because there is vacancy, in such a case, my answer will be let AR be the GAV, not ER. But if that is not the case, ER is greater because of other reasons, not because of vacancy, then let ER be the GAV. Now, I'm sure this last part may not be so comfortably clear. Don't worry, that I will explain you with practical figures. It will be very, very easy to understand. Right? So for this, first, if anybody wants to take a screenshot of this, please take a screenshot so that when I'm going to the next slide where I have taken some practical examples, you will have this for reference. So just take a quick screenshot. Now, let me take you to practical sums. Now, I have crafted some examples. We will solve together so that I will also get to know whether you have understood this or not. These are the actual questions that you get in exams. Obviously, the question will be for computing the entire HP income, not only GAV, but the starting point would be GAV. So it is like this. This is vacancy rent. So municipal rent, fair rent, standard rent. Now these three will help you find out ER. Then annual rent, unrealized rent, and vacancy rent. Now they may also give a vacancy period, but if vacancy period is given, then it would be given in the form of months, 1 month, 2 month, etc. I have for simplicity directly computed the rent applicable for that 1 month, 2 month vacancy period. So what I'm giving you is directly the vacancy rent. Now we will find out each things one by one. So now I request you to tell me what is expected rent of the first case. Shutosh, beta, how 780? Can you explain 780? I'm only asking you to give me expected rent. I don't want GAV. I don't want anything else. I only want expected rent. So, how to find out expected rent? First, compare these two, whichever is higher. Now, out of these two, what is higher? 800. Now, compare this higher figure with standard rent. And now you have to take whichever is lower. So, my answer is 700. Correct? This is my expected rent. Now, how to find out actual rent? Actual rent is if my annual rent is given, which is the rent for the whole year, from that deduct unrealized, from that deduct vacancy. After deducting both, whatever is left is your actual rent. So actual rent is 780. Correct? Now, once I get both these figures, I'll compare both these figures. Now, if my actual rent is higher, GAV is actual rent, chapter closed. So where actual rent is higher, GAV is actual rent. Because please understand this logically, that the lawmakers also wants that they want to tax actual rent only, because that is the true rent. So as far as possible, we try to tax the actual rent. But where there is some problem with actual rent, we will take the expected rent. Correct? Now same, second case. Higher of these two is 800. 800 compared with 700, ER is 700. Now in this case, net of this will be my AR. So it comes to 800 minus 150, 50. It is 600. Now this will help us understand that point. Now here my ER is greater. But what does the law says? Check whether ER is greater because of vacancy. Now how I will check that whether ER is greater because of vacancy? So here I'll tell you that find out one more figure. Whatever is the AR which you just calculated, add back the vacancy rent. So if you add back the vacancy rent, I get 650. Means what? Had there been no vacancy, if there would have been no vacancy in this particular year, my actual rent would have been this. So this is if there would have been no vacancy. Now compare expected rent with this figure. Still expected rent is greater, then your answer is expected rent. It means what? My actual rent is smaller than my expected rent, and vacancy is not the cause of that. It is some other cause. So even after adding vacancy rent, as I've done here, still my expected rent, which is 700, it is still greater than this. It means expected rent is higher because of some other reasons, not because of vacancy. And in that case, my GAV is the expected rent because vacancy is not affecting this. All right, let us proceed further. Now, higher of these two is 800. 800 compared with standard rent, whichever is lower. So my answer is 800. Now, 900 minus this, the answer is 700. Again, 700, which is actual rent, is less than my expected rent. Now I will check. Had there been no vacancy, what would have been the scenario? Had there been no vacancy, the scenario would have been 750. That is AR plus vacancy rent. It is still smaller than ER. It means ER is still greater. It means ER is not impacted by vacancy rent. So my GAV is ER. I hope you all have understood this. Yes. Now see. Higher of these two is 900. Now in this case, the Rent Control Act is not applicable. So my ER is 900 because I have no standard rent to compare with. Here, again, this minus these two, how much it comes to? Okay, I'll change this example slightly just to give you the effect of something. So I'll just make this 220. Students, make it 220. Now if this is 220, when I deduct it from 1100, it will be 880. Correct, na? Sorry, 830. This is correct. Now pay attention. This is going to be interesting. Now, again, my expected rent is greater. But whenever my expected rent is greater, what I do is I take actual rent and I add vacancy rent. When I do this, I get a figure which is 1050. And now when I compare it with expected rent, what I get to know, that this expected rent, which was appearing to be greater than actual rent, this was appearing to be greater because there was such a big amount of vacancy. Had there been no such vacancy, if this year I would have had the tenant for the whole year, that is, if this year there was no vacancy, my actual rent would have been this. It means it would have been higher than ER. It means the ER which I am having is not a correct figure because vacancy has affected my AR. It means AR only is my genuine figure. Even though AR is appearing less, that is because of vacancy. Had there been no vacancy, my AR would have been greater than ER. So since vacancy here is the factor which is reducing the AR, now the law says GAV will be AR. So see, in these scenarios, I have taken both possibilities. In these two cases, vacancy was not the cause of AR being less. So in these two cases, the final GAV was the ER figure. However, in this case, it was the vacancy which was causing AR to be lower. So in this case, AR was the GAV. So this is what is the differentiating factor. Now, I give you all 5 minutes. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let us say. You have to give me GAV of all the remaining 5 cases. You'll write case number, like case number, you'll write 5 dash answer, 6 dash answer, 7 dash answer. Directly give me GAV, no problem. But keep your workings with you handy, ER, AR, etc. So that when I'm discussing the answers, we can check whether your answers were right or wrong. So let me take it. So now case number 5, right? Whichever is higher is 900. Now both are same. So ER is 900. This is 1100 minus 225 is 875. Correct? Now had there been no vacancy, my amount of AR would have been 1100 only. It means this ER is appearing as greater than AR only because of vacancy, not because of any other reason. So if it is because of vacancy only, then my GAV will be AR only, not ER. I hope now you're understanding that language part, which was originally appearing to be slightly complicated, right? So answer for case 5 is 875. Right, students? Anybody having any doubts? Now moving ahead, higher of these two is 800. Whichever is lower is 800. Now 1100 minus 225, again it is 875, right? Now whichever is higher, the answer is 875, correct? Now higher of these two, lower of these two, 1000 minus 75 minus this 900. Now since both are same, nothing doing, your answer will be 900. Again 1000 compared with 800, whichever is higher is 1000. There is no standard rent, so this is your expected rent. Now 1100 minus 125, 1075, whichever is higher, 1075. No, it is 975, not 1075. 1 second. Okay, now 975. Now if I add back the vacancy rent, it means this was appearing as higher only because of vacancy. Had there been no vacancy, they would have been equal. It means my actual rent is correct. Only the vacancy was disturbing it. So I will take actual rent as my GAV. Again, comparing these two, whichever is higher is 1000. So 1000 is my expected rent. Now deducting this 1100 minus this, I get 975. Again 1000 appears to be greater, that is ER appears to be greater. So I take this, add this, I get, again my ER was appearing higher because of vacancy. Had there been no vacancy, ER would not have been higher. Hence my answer is this. So students, this is how you find out GAV in all possibilities. So this example covers all possibilities of computing GAV. Anybody has not understood any case scenario, please let me know. Anybody wants me to explain any case scenario again? Any particular point which is a doubt? Oh, Manvi is asking case 5. Okay. Vinuta is saying case 4. Okay. Let us check both again. Case 4, 800 and 900, whichever is higher, 900, there is no standard rent. So this is 900. Now this is 1100, this is 50, and but I have changed this to 220. I think Vinuta, you are still solving by the original question. So solve it by this revised figure, 220 compared with 50. Vinutha, then maybe you will not have a problem if you take 220 compared with, right? Okay, so I go to case 5. Somebody had doubt in case 5. So it is 900, 800, so higher is 900. 900 compared with 900. So my ER is 900. 1100 minus 225 is 875. Now my ER appears to be higher. So let me check. What if there was no vacancy? What would be the figure of AR? It would be 875 plus 225 means 1100. Now when I find out this 1100, I come to know that this particular 900 ER was appearing higher only because of vacancy. So vacancy is the cause of ER becoming higher. If that is the case, then your GAV is AR. So my GAV is beta 875. So Niru, you had doubts in case 5. Somebody else also said, Manvi, you had doubt in case 5. Is this understood case 5, both of you, Niru and Manvi? Okay. Okay. Now Neha is asking, or Kaveri, sorry, Kaveri is asking case 8. Okay, case 8, what is the case? So it is 10, 8, that is 1800, higher is 1000. There is no standard rent, so my higher of the two expected rent is 1000 only. So expected rent is 1000. Now 1100 minus 125. So 125 if I deduct, I get 975, which is my AR. Now ER is higher than AR. So I'll make another calculation. I will check what if there was no vacancy. Then my AR would have been 1000 again. Now if this would have been 1000, it means the ER which was appearing as greater is actually not greater. My AR is actually correct. Why it is correct? Because had there been no vacancy, the AR would have been 1000. Then it would have matched with ER. It means my AR which I'm getting as 975 is correct. It is appearing as lower only because of vacancy. So where after adding vacancy, AR becomes correct. In that case, AR is my GAV. It will not be 1000 beta, it will be 975. Because if you write 1000, it means indirectly you are paying tax on vacancy rent also, which is not correct. You should not pay tax on vacancy because that was never earned by you. Kaveri, I hope I was able to make this clear to you, right? So I've tried to craft such case scenarios where all possibilities are covered. Okay, students. So with this, we have completed everything relating to GAV. Now tomorrow we'll discuss with the interest part, the conditions of interest, then the calculation of interest, again firstly the theory and then the practical part. I've crafted 2 cases for understanding the interest computation, and then we will go to computation of HP under different case scenarios, right? So this is the end of today's session. Thank you, Niru, for your comment. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Abhishek, for your comment. Yes, it is more because you all engaged yourself. That is why you all enjoyed the session and it was more understandable to you all. So I'll request that as far as possible, please attend with the live sessions. Yes, then only you'll enjoy the discussion part also. You can also be part of the discussion. And yes, please read it again. Wherever you feel there is any question, in my next session, we'll first answer your questions and then we will go back or we will proceed. Yes, thank you, Vinuta, for your comment. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, but Manvi, income tax is really interesting and that you will find as we progress in this chapter. Fine, students. So, Manoj, why you are saying welcome back? I'm anyways part of this. Yes. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Take care, students. Take care. Bye bye. Let us meet soon for the next part of our deliberation. Yes. Hardik beta, I think right now it will be a bit difficult for me because actually uh, I have one more session immediately. So please excuse me for today, Hardik. And anyways, salary is always very lengthy. If you have any particular one or two pointers doubt, you can immediately ask me. But if it is solving the whole question, but you also know salary is yes, yes, you can ask me any one point, not a problem. Tell me which point you have a doubt in salary. Tell me. Hardik, I'm unmuting you. You ask your question, beta.
Sir, only one point, sir, I have a doubt. Sir, in this in this photo, sir, RFA is calculated. And sir, in RFA, it is written that clearly that 17.2 perks are not included in the salary while calculating RFA salary.
What is not included?
72
72 perks.
perks.
Okay, fine.
Sir, but the domestic servant salary falls in it, which is reimbursed by the employer. And sir, it is included in that salary. Sir, why?
No, no. Why it is included?
Sir, in the solution it is included. Just it is for checking. I am asking you that, sir. It is not included, no?
Salary is included. One second. Actually, I am not able to understand. You have shared two images. So which one you are referring to?
Sir, in this question, sir,
Yes.
this is the answer. Sir, if you will zoom it, sir, 96,000 is the reimbursement of salary of the domestic servant.
One second, but actually the point is you have shared two images, right?
Sir, the image which you have shared, in that only it is written. And the other one is the question.
Will I be able to zoom it, beta?
Yes, sir, you can zoom it. Like, sir, from there, uh, near the
But
taskbar. Near the
here,
Sir, near the taskbar, zoom option is there.
now it has zoomed to some extent.
Sir, in point number 6, reimbursement of salary of domestic servant, 8,000 into 12, fully taxable. Sir, why it is included?
That's why I'm saying, beta. It is taxed as a separate perquisite. Now you are saying it is part of RFA. It is not part of RFA. It is a
Sir,
separate perquisite.
sir, while seeing the salary of RFA, sir, 15% salary, 9,38,500.
Acha, so this is one second. This is the salary computation for computing RFA.
Yes, sir. And sir, in the answer, 9,38,500 includes this as well as medical facility salary also. 6,500. Sorry, medical facility perk 6,500.
It should not be includable, beta, as far as I understand,
Sir,
because
I
these are
also know the
perquisites.
same. Sir, it is a question from the revisionary faculty has taken, and in that answer they have included it. And I am
Beta, just check if it is any past exam question, something. We'll have to
sir, I
check
have checked.
from there.
Sir, I have checked all RTPs, all MTPs, all questions from previous years. From literally from 2015 onwards, I have checked all the papers. Sir, in none of the papers I have able to find it.
So you don't have such a sum where such adjustments are given and
Yes,
RFA
sir.
working is required?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No sum is there.
Okay. Allow me some time, beta. Let me find out this if I can find such a similar sum, right?
Sir, the second one is the question. You can also refer the question as well. I am sending it. I am resending it. The blue part is the question, and the white part is the answer.
Understood, beta. Fine.
Okay, sir.
I'll go through that, beta. Fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Ashutosh is asking, sir, please explain. Sometimes the tenant let out his house to small businessmen and for residential purpose also in same building. Here, how it will treat. See, but Ashutosh, understand one thing. You are letting out your house. The person may use it for business. That is not your problem. For you, it is a let out property. And once Ashutosh, you have let it out, for you, it is always your income from house property. So even if you have let out to a businessman, and for residential purpose in the same building, but it makes no difference because you are not running business. That person is running business. So for you, whatever rent you will get from that person will always be part of HP head only, Ashutosh. Is this fine, Ashutosh? I hope I was able to clear your doubt. Yes, good. So students, thank you very much. Let us catch up again. Fine. Thank you all. Take care and keep studying, and please be present live. Bye bye. Take care.